Title: The Weight of Water. It was an unremarkable Tuesday afternoon when my father's laughter echoed through the house, a sound dripping with scorn. "You'll lose your mind chasing ghosts in puddles," he jeered, tossing my research on cursed aquifers into the trash like it was yesterday's newspaper. The rest of my family joined in, their voices a chorus of ridicule, each mocking syllable a knife cutting deeper into my resolve. Paranoid delusions, they called it. A disgrace to the family name. But what they couldn't understand was that I wasn't chasing shadows. I was pursuing truth. I was a prophet without a congregation, and I threw myself into documenting the paranormal side of hydrogeology to prove I wasn't insane, to validate my existence in a world that labeled me an outcast. Years passed. The world didn't change. I didn't change. I collected stories of hauntings tied to water, mapping cursed territories where springs whispered secrets and rivers ran red. It became my life's work, uncovering the dangers lurking beneath the surface. But every new discovery came with a price. Each contaminated well I examined pulled a piece of my sanity. Each ghostly encounter gnawed at my spirit, until I was a fragile husk of the person I once was. Yet now, standing at the threshold of my childhood home, I felt more than just fragile. I felt potent, my very presence charged with the weight of my knowledge. I was no longer the foolish child they had mocked. I was now a renowned expert who had escaped the clutches of horrors that others could not bear. The world recognized my work, and my name was whispered in hushed tones across academic circles filled with fear and reverence. But I had come home not to bask in my recognition, but to confront them. My family needed to see the darkness I had uncovered. They needed to understand the cost of their disbelief. The air felt heavy and thick as I stepped inside. The familiar sense of childhood vanilla candles and old wood clashing violently with the memory of their laughter. They were gathered in the living room, and as I entered, conversation halted, the laughter fading into a stunned silence. I was met with expressions that had once filled me with dread. Now they were merely shadows of disbelief. "Look who's back," my sister sneered, her voice dripping with a condescending sweetness that made my skin crawl. "Did you bring us any ghost stories?" I smiled, a tight, humorless grin. "Not stories, truths." Their eyes flickered with uncertainty as I pulled out a small, weathered vial from my bag. It shimmered like liquid glass, but I knew what it contained. A sample from the Blackwater Spring, a cursed source that had taken more lives than I could count. I had survived the horrors of that place, and now it was time for them to witness what they had mocked. "Do you remember the tales about the Blackwater Spring?" I asked, my voice steady as I placed the vial on the coffee table. "The ghosts of those who drowned in its depths?" Laughter erupted again, but this time it lacked the confidence it once held. My father's brow furrowed, and my mother's eyes darted to the vial in trepidation. "This is ridiculous," Dad said, but I could hear the unease creeping into his tone. "Is it?" I pressed, leaning closer to the table. "What if I told you that the water remembers, that it holds the weight of its victims, that it speaks to those who dare to listen?" Their laughter fell silent, replaced by a heavy tension that coiled around us like a serpent. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. It was time to show them the truth. In that moment, the air shifted. The lights flickered ominously, and a chill swept through the room, wrapping around us like a shroud. I could see their faces pale, confusion morphing into terror as the shadows gathered closer. "Look at it," I urged, pointing at the vial. "Feel it." And then, as if summoned by my words, a low, mournful wail echoed from the vial, an unearthly sound that thrummed with despair. The liquid inside began to churn, dark tendrils rising from it like smoke. My family recoiled, their laughter extinguished, replaced by a desperate fear etched on their faces. "Stop this!" my mother cried, clutching her chest as if the air had turned to lead. But it was too late. The shadows twisted and writhed, spilling forth from the vial as a dark mist, forming shapes of anguished faces, their mouths wide in silent screams. "No, no!" my father shouted, stumbling backward, his bravado evaporating. He had once belittled my research. Now he was grappling with the very horrors I had faced alone. In that moment, I saw the truth reflected in their eyes, a horrifying realization of what they had dismissed, the cost of their disbelief. As the apparitions surged around us, the haunting cries enveloped them, pulling them into a world they had once mocked, a world I had fought to escape. I stood firm, my heart pounding with a mixture of dread and defiance. They needed to understand that these horrors were real, that their laughter had come at a price, and as the apparitions faded back into the vial, I felt a chilling calm wash over me. "You wanted proof," I said softly, the weight of my journey settling on my shoulders. "Now you have it." Their faces, once filled with mockery, now reflected regret, an understanding that they had dismissed the darkness I had weathered and now bore the scars of. I turned on my heel, leaving them to grapple with the truth, the shadows of their disbelief lingering heavy in the air. I stepped out into the night, the cool breeze brushing against my skin, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere of the past. I had returned as a conqueror. But my victory came at the cost of their understanding. I had survived what they could not face, and as I walked away from the echoes of their fear, I knew the shadows would remember. In this world of cursed waters, some truths are too heavy to ignore, and some shadows are born from the deepest wells of our own making.